Hey there, and welcome to Brada Tales. Tonight, we bring you a chilling collection of horror stories set against the soothing sound of rain. Before we dive into suspense, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. If these stories send shivers down your spine, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Get comfortable, let the fear slowly take over, and tell us if you enjoy this kind of storytelling. Now sit back and relax, we're about to begin. The rain poured relentlessly, drenching the coastal village of Mornhaven. Alexandra Thorne stood beneath the weathered stone archway leading to the local lighthouse, clutching a salt-stained leather journal in her trembling hands. The journal had belonged to her grandmother, a woman she hardly remembered, but whose name still evoked whispers among the village's oldest residents. It had all begun 10 days ago when Alexandra inherited Ravenwood Manor, her grandmother's seaside estate perched on the cliffs overlooking Mornhaven. The mansion had remained sealed since her grandmother's unexplained disappearance decades earlier. The villagers spoke of eerie occurrences there, but Alexandra had dismissed their stories as local folklore. Yet the discovery of the journal in a hidden compartment beneath a floorboard in her grandmother's study awakened something inexplicable within her. The journal contained cryptic illustrations and fragmented text. One phrase, however, appeared repeatedly throughout the aged pages. "Beware the ancients of the deep. They wait in the beacon of endless vigilance." Alexandra's pulse quickened as she gazed up at the lighthouse. Through the curtain of rain, the ancient structure loomed against the turbulent sky, its beacon dark for decades. A strange tension hung in the air, thick and palpable despite the downpour. She hesitated at the entrance, but something within her, something beyond rational thought, compelled her to unlock the heavy wooden door. It swung inward with a low, mournful groan. As Alexandra stepped inside, the atmosphere shifted. The rainfall seemed to fade to a distant murmur, as if muffled by an unseen barrier, and the air inside swirled with a strange mist that curled around the spiral staircase, almost sentient in its movements. The chill penetrated her raincoat, but she advanced forward, drawn by an inexplicable force toward the heart of the lighthouse. The journal had referenced a particular stone slab, one that bore the same emblem Alexandra had discovered etched into her palm the night after finding the book. It wasn't a birthmark or tattoo. It had materialized overnight, burned into her skin in an archaic pattern. Her heart raced at the memory. She climbed the winding staircase, each step taking her higher into the abandoned lighthouse. The wooden steps creaked beneath her weight, telling tales of neglect and forgotten purpose. Names and legacies lost to time, much like her own family's mysterious past. But the journal had been specific. Seek the northern stone at the keeper's summit, for beneath lies the truth. Alexandra's breath caught as she reached the lantern room. The massive lens stood dormant, its glass surfaces coated with years of salt and grime. But her attention was drawn to the floor, where a large, circular stone slab dominated the center of the room. Upon it was carved the unmistakable emblem, her emblem. She knelt beside it, tracing her fingers along the weathered engravings, and as she did, the floor beneath her vibrated with energy. The stone shifted. With a grinding sound, the slab rotated to reveal a hidden staircase, spiraling down into darkness. Alexandra stood frozen, paralyzed by a momentary surge of fear. Her logical mind urged retreat, but another part, something deeper and more primal, beckoned her downward. She took the first step. The staircase descended far below what Alexandra had anticipated. The stone walls were slick with sea spray and condensation, and the air grew heavier, saltier with each step. The faint light from the lantern room above gradually faded, leaving only the pale blue glow emanating from cracks in the walls. She felt the weight of the unknown bearing down upon her, but her curiosity and the strange compulsion drove her onward. The journal had mentioned a place of endless vigilance. It spoke of ancient entities that dwelt beneath the waves, forgotten by time, waiting to resurface. Alexandra had initially dismissed these as the delusions of a troubled mind. But now, descending into the depths, she could no longer deny the preternatural sensation that something otherworldly stirred below. The stairway eventually opened into a vast, circular chamber carved directly into the bedrock beneath the lighthouse. The walls were adorned with strange symbols, etched deep into the stone and pulsing with a subtle, aquamarine luminescence. In the center of the room stood a weathered stone altar, encrusted with barnacles and sea growth, suggesting centuries of exposure to tidal forces. Behind it loomed an enormous curved doorway, sealed with thick, corroded chains that appeared forged from an unfamiliar metal with a greenish patina. Alexandra approached with caution, her heart hammering within her chest. As she neared the altar, a sudden wave of vertigo overwhelmed her. The symbols on the walls appeared to undulate like seaweed caught in a current. She stumbled backward, clutching her head, struggling to maintain her equilibrium. "Focus," she whispered to herself, breathing deeply. "It's just an illusion. It's just..." Before she could complete the thought, the ground beneath her trembled, and a deep, resonating sound echoed throughout the chamber. It wasn't a sound any human vocal cords could produce. It was something ancient, something oceanic. Her thoughts returned to the journal, to the warning hastily scribbled across its final page. "They sense your presence. They hear your heartbeat across the void." Alexandra looked frantically around, searching for the source of the sound. The walls seemed to constrict, and the shadows stretched longer, darker, until they resembled tentacles reaching across the floor. Her breathing grew rapid and shallow as panic took hold. But something within her, the same force that had guided her here, kept her rooted in place. She had to discover the truth about her grandmother, about her lineage, and about the secrets concealed beneath the lighthouse. Steeling herself, she approached the altar. Her fingers brushed its cold surface, barnacle-encrusted and slippery with sea moisture, and a sudden surge of energy coursed through her body. She gasped, staggering backward, but her gaze was drawn to something nestled among the marine growth, a small, bronze key, remarkably preserved despite the corrosive environment. Alexandra paused briefly before retrieving it. The key was unexpectedly warm to the touch, and as she held it, she experienced an inexplicable connection to it, as though it had been waiting specifically for her. Instinctively, she turned toward the massive chained doorway. The chain seemed to pulse, responding to her presence. Her hand trembled as she approached, but with the key firmly in her grasp, she felt a strange sense of purpose. She inserted the key into the ancient lock. It fit perfectly. With a resonant click that echoed throughout the chamber, the chains loosened and fell away, splashing into shallow pools of seawater on the floor. The stone door groaned as it slowly swung inward, revealing a dark passageway beyond. Alexandra hesitated. She understood that whatever lay beyond this threshold would irrevocably alter everything. But she had ventured too far to retreat now. Drawing a deep breath of the briny air, she stepped forward into the unknown. The passageway beyond was narrow, the air thick with the scent of salt water and something else, something primordial and unsettling. The walls were inscribed with more intricate carvings, but these differed from those in the outer chamber. They depicted detailed scenes of ritualistic offerings, of human figures bowing before massive, tentacled beings emerging from turbulent waters. Alexandra felt a chill course through her as she realized the creatures in the carvings seemed hauntingly familiar. The journal had mentioned them, the ancients. Primordial entities that had once ruled the oceans long before humanity's emergence. They had been banished, imprisoned in the deepest trenches of the sea, but their followers had endured, worshipping them in secret, awaiting their return. Alexandra's mind raced as she ventured deeper into the passage. Her grandmother had known about this. She had been involved somehow. And now it appeared Alexandra was being drawn into the same enigmatic legacy. But why? Why had her grandmother left her the journal, the key, the manor? What purpose lay behind it all? As these questions swirled in her mind, she noticed a peculiar sensation on her palm. Glancing down, she saw that the emblem, the symbol that had appeared on her skin, was glowing with a soft blue light. The same emblem adorned the walls of the passageway, the same symbol that marked the entrance to this forbidden place. It was as though the mark was guiding her, drawing her deeper into the earth, towards something she could not yet comprehend. Finally, the passage opened into another chamber, this one even larger than the first. At the far end stood an immense stone pedestal, partially submerged in a pool of seawater, upon which rested a large, ornate tome. The book was bound in what appeared to be the hide of some unknown sea creature, its cover iridescent and shifting in the dim light. Alexandra knew instinctively that this was the source of everything. The journal had spoken of the Codex Oceanum, an ancient text rumored to contain the secrets of the ancients. Alexandra approached the book, her heart pounding. The air around it seemed to vibrate with energy, and as she reached out to touch it, she experienced a surge of power unlike anything she had ever known. Her hand trembled as her fingertips grazed the cover. Suddenly, the chamber around her shifted. The walls appeared to ripple like the surface of disturbed water, and the air grew thick with the scent of brine. Alexandra stumbled backward, her vision blurring as the world around her distorted. She could hear whispers, faint and incomprehensible, growing louder with each passing moment. "You are the last." The voice resonated in her mind, deep and commanding. Alexandra turned in a circle, searching for its source, but saw nothing, only shadows, moving and shifting like creatures beneath the waves. "You are the vessel." The voice was closer now, as though it were speaking directly into her ear. She spun around again, her heart racing, but still found nothing. Her mind struggled to process what was happening. The journal had mentioned the voices, the whispers of the ancients, calling to their chosen. But Alexandra had never believed it. Not until now. Suddenly the emblem on her palm burned with an intense, cold fire, and she cried out in pain. She fell to her knees, clutching her wrist as the symbol seared deeper into her flesh, glowing brighter, until it was almost blinding. And then just as suddenly, the pain subsided. The chamber fell silent. Alexandra opened her eyes, gasping for breath. The emblem on her palm still glowed faintly, but the pain had vanished. She looked around, her vision gradually clearing. The chamber had returned to its previous state, if it had ever truly changed. But something was different. She rose slowly, her legs unsteady. The book remained on the pedestal, partially submerged in the pool, but the energy surrounding it had transformed. It no longer felt threatening, no longer felt as though it sought to consume her. Instead, it felt welcoming. Alexandra hesitated only momentarily before reaching out once more, her fingers brushing the strange, iridescent cover of the book. This time there was no overwhelming surge of energy, no sudden distortion of the chamber. The book seemed to be waiting for her, inviting her. She opened it carefully, the pages surprisingly dry despite their proximity to water. The text was unlike anything she had ever encountered, written in a script that seemed to flow and change like currents. Initially, she couldn't decipher the writing, but as she studied the pages, something remarkable began to happen. The symbols rearranged themselves, shifting into forms she could comprehend. It was as though the book itself was revealing its secrets to her, one page at a time. Her eyes scanned the text, and the more she read, the more rapidly her heart beat. The book described the ancients, their banishment, and the rituals that maintained their imprisonment. But it also spoke of something else, something far more terrifying. The vessel, the one destined to release them, to bring them back into the world. Alexandra's breath caught in her throat, as she realized what the journal had been attempting to convey all along. The emblem on her palm, the strange pull that had led her here, it was all part of a design. She wasn't merely the last of her bloodline, she was the one destined to free the ancients from their eternal prison. Panic flooded through her. She slammed the book shut, stepping back as though mere proximity might consume her. Her thoughts scattered in all directions. Could this truly be her fate? Was she really meant to bring about the end of everything known? She examined the emblem on her palm, still glowing with a pale blue light. The weight of the revelation pressed upon her, threatening to crush her beneath it. She needed to escape. She needed to leave this place before it was too late. But as she turned to flee, the ground beneath her shuddered more violently than before. The chamber walls groaned, and a low, rumbling sound echoed through the air, the same sound she had heard upon first entering the chamber. But this time it was nearer. Alexandra's heart raced as she turned, searching for the source. Her eyes were drawn to the stone doorway, now fully open, the chains lying broken in pools of seawater. And from the darkness beyond, something was emerging. A figure stepped into the light, tall, draped in robes that appeared woven from seaweed and shells. Its face remained hidden within a deep hood, but Alexandra could feel its gaze upon her, cold and ancient. The figure moved with fluid grace, as though partially composed of water itself. "You have awakened them." The voice was deep yet flowing, and it seemed to echo in Alexandra's mind rather than through her ears. Alexandra retreated, her heart hammering against her ribs. "What do you mean?" "I didn't. The moment you entered this sanctuary, the moment you touched the codex, their slumber was disturbed. You are the one they have awaited." The figure drew closer, and Alexandra could now see more details, webbed hands extending from the sleeves of the robe, the faint glow of symbols etched into what little visible skin there was. It was one of the ancients' devotees, a servant who had waited centuries for this moment. Alexandra's thoughts raced. She had to prevent this. She couldn't allow these entities to return to the world. But how? The book, the key, the emblem. Everything pointed to her, but there had to be a way to stop the process. "You cannot oppose your destiny." The figure's voice was cold, final. "It is written in the tides, in the blood of your ancestors. You will complete the ritual, and they will rise once more." Alexandra shook her head, panic rising within her. "No, I won't do it. I can't." The figure paused, tilting its head slightly. "It is not a matter of choice. The ritual has already commenced. It is in motion, and nothing you do can halt it." Alexandra's heart pounded in her chest. The words felt like a sentence of doom. But then something clicked in her mind, a fragment from the journal, something her grandmother had written. "The bonds that contain them are forged not of metal, but of will. Only the vessel can break them, and only the vessel can strengthen them." Alexandra looked down at the emblem on her palm, glowing steadily in the darkness. The key wasn't solely for releasing the ancients, it was also the means to keep them bound. Her grandmother had known. She had left the journal, the clues, the manner, all to guide Alexandra here to this moment. But was she prepared? Could she truly resist the pull of destiny? The power that now coursed through her veins. The ground trembled again, more violently than before. The air around her grew heavy with the same dark energy she had felt earlier, pressing upon her, threatening to overwhelm her completely. The robed figure took another step forward. "It is time." Alexandra's mind raced, her heart threatening to burst from her chest. She could feel the weight of the ancients pressing down upon her, the primordial, malevolent force that sought to break free from its prison. But somewhere deep inside her, a spark of resistance ignited. She wasn't ready to surrender. Without conscious thought, Alexandra raised her hand, the one bearing the glowing emblem, and directed it toward the stone doorway. The emblem blazed brilliantly, filling the chamber with an intense azure light. The robed figure recoiled, releasing a sound like waves crashing against cliffs as the light engulfed it. Alexandra felt the energy surging through her, more powerful than anything she had ever experienced. The codex, the altar, the chains, they were all connected to her, to the emblem. She possessed the power to halt this. With a cry of defiance, Alexandra focused all her will on the stone doorway, on the chains that had once bound the ancients. She could feel the force pushing against her, trying to break free, but she stood firm, refusing to yield. The chamber shook violently, the walls fracturing as seawater began to seep through, but Alexandra maintained her position. The light from the emblem grew brighter until it was almost unbearable. The robed figure wailed, its voice echoing throughout the chamber, but Alexandra remained steadfast. And then, with a final burst of energy, the chains reappeared, binding the stone door once more. The chamber fell silent. Alexandra collapsed to the ground, struggling for breath. The emblem on her palm still glowed faintly, but the intense light had dimmed. She had succeeded. She had prevented the ancients from returning. But as she lay there, exhausted and shaken, a new realization dawned on her. The emblem remained. It was still there, still connected to the ancient power that had brought her here. And as long as it remained, the threat of the ancients would never truly vanish. Alexandra closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her destiny settle over her. She had won this confrontation, but the conflict was far from resolved. Thank you for listening till the end. I hope you were able to relax and will now get a good rest. And don't worry, new stories are already on the way for tomorrow. So don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to stay connected. Now have a good night. See you in the next episode.